Our scriptures today come to us from the Gospel of Luke, the 12th chapter, the 13th through the 21st verse. I'll be reading from the Common English Bible. Someone from the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus said to him, "Man, who appointed me as judge or referee between you and your brother?" Then Jesus said to them, "Watch out. Guard yourself against all kinds of greed. After all, one's life isn't determined by one's possessions, even when someone is very wealthy." And then he told them a parable. A certain rich man's land brought bountiful crop. He said to himself, "What will I do? I have no place to store my harvest." Then he thought, "Here's what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. That's where I will store all my grains and goods. I'll say to myself, you have stored up plenty of goods, enough for several years. Take it easy, eat, drink, and enjoy yourself." But God has said to him, "Fool, tonight you will die. Now who will get the things that you have prepared for yourself? This is the way it will be for those who hoard things for themselves and aren't rich towards God." These are the words of God, the people of God. Thanks be to God. I am a big fan of observational comedy. You know, those comics that they point out the inconsistencies in those everyday sorts of things. Comedians like George Carlin. Carlin has a bit that he does on stuff that I particularly enjoy. Now, I'm not going to repeat the entire or recite the entire bit that he does verbatim because it's George Carlin. And say what you will about the man, he makes some very astute observations about the human condition and about our love and desire for stuff. Our lives are surrounded with the collection and the protection of stuff. What are our homes but boxes with lids on them to keep our stuff safe? When we leave home, what do? We always take at least some of our stuff with us, and we make sure to lock the door to keep our stuff safe while we're gone. We pay for insurance so that if our stuff is destroyed in some kind of calamity, that we can buy bigger and better stuff. My wife and I, we got one of those video doorbells so that not only can we ensure that our stuff inside the house is safe, but that the stuff that shows up in the mail is safe until we get home. And what do we do when we leave the house? It doesn't matter if we're going to work to get money to buy more stuff to put into our homes, or it doesn't matter if we're going to stores to buy more stuff to put into our homes. But everywhere we go, we carry these little bits of our things, of our stuff. We always travel with things like our phone, our wallet, our keys, maybe some mints or some gum. When I travel, I always make sure that I have my pillow, my blanket, my phone, my wallet, my keys, laptop, tablet, meds, beard trimmer, oil, and shampoo, because I've got to keep this thing looking well, and a book just in case I get bored. I will not travel without any of those things. And do you notice how sometimes when you're traveling and maybe you're visiting a friend's house or a family's house, do you ever notice how all of their junk is in the way? And do you ever notice how sometimes other people's stuff is junk and your junk is stuff? My wife and I were on vacation recently, a couple weeks ago, and we stayed in this lovely beach house, but it had one problem. There were knickknacks everywhere, all over the end tables, and it was just so much junk everywhere that we had to clear it all out so that we would have enough room for our stuff. We love our stuff. I have a lot of really nice stuff. I'm a collector of things. I think my spouse would call me more of a hoarder, but I have several collections of various things. In my house, in my basement, I have a collection of 10 signs that I've collected from various places. I collect Royals bobbleheads. I collect Mr. Potato Heads and Star Wars theme and other themes as well. I collect sports memorabilia, and I display these things across my home and throughout my office in the hopes that when someone comes and sees my stuff, they'll think, oh, I like his stuff, and they'll like me too. And I have nice clothes and nice cufflinks and nice shoes and nice pants, and I dress nice so that I hope that when people see me, they think, oh, he looks nice. He has nice stuff. I like him. We all have stuff that we treasure. Maybe it's some collection that you keep. Maybe it's your shoes. Maybe it's some accessory. We all have some kind of stuff that we treasure. But the question is, what happens when we run out of room? Both when we run out of room, physical space for our stuff, but what also happens when we run out of room for what really matters? All of my childhood toys, my books, my knickknacks, all of those things are still in my parents' house. And over the years since I have moved out, my mother has threatened again and again and again, at best to sell my stuff, and at worst to just throw it away. And every now and again she'll threaten to do these things, but I don't take her too seriously. But now that I have a house of my own, I'm afraid that she might be serious this time. And I can't lose that stuff. I can't lose my Pola, my stuffed polar bear that I've had since I was a child. I can't lose my Lyle the crocodile books. I can't lose my Legos, God forbid. So what am I going to do? Lord knows I don't have enough room in my own house because of all the other stuff I have and my wife's stuff. So what am I going to do? Am I going to buy a bigger house? Am I going to buy a storage unit? And am I going to try to shove it somewhere in my basement and not open it up for another 7 years? Many of us can relate to the story that we find in Luke today. The story begins with this man who somehow has the gall to tell Jesus what to do. And from the very beginning, before we even get to the parable, we see the first consequences of greed. The first consequences of acquiring more and more and more stuff. Broken relationships. Dividing inheritance is a big issue, no matter the time. And it wasn't an uncommon practice for brothers and siblings to dispute and to look to the religious leaders to try and settle it for them. I mean, I don't know about you, but my sister and I have already divided my parents' belongings. We know who gets what. I'm getting the Fostoria potato bowl. It's the only thing I really care about. But families would haggle and argue over every little thing. How powerful greed can be. How amazing it is that greed can warp and erode even the closest of relationships. It becomes about what we think we deserve, and it makes someone else, the other person, to be a thief who is stealing what is rightfully ours. We turn the other person into a villain. This man tries to recognize that Jesus is a fair and just man, but Jesus refuses to determine whose greed is more justified. Instead, as Jesus most often does, he tells us a story. He tells us a story of this poor, poor man who has too much stuff. He has too much grain that he knows what to do with. And so what does he do? He decides to tear down his barns to build even bigger ones. It's the sensible and the clever response. It makes perfect sense. And what do we do when we run out of room? Do we get bigger houses for ourselves? Do we find storage units and fill them up to the brim, not opening them for years at a time? And it's not just what we do as individuals. What does Walmart do when they run out of room? They build new and bigger stores. Have you been to the Hypermart in Topeka on Wanamaker? It was this big experiment that Walmart did. It is one of the most gratifying and most beautiful monuments to American capitalism on the face of this earth. It is the largest Walmart you will see in your life. I almost guarantee it. It is a wonderful place to see. What does Amazon do when they run out of room? They build bigger and better warehouses. And don't even get me started about Costco. My wife doesn't eat meat. I'm the only one who eats steaks. But nowadays, I don't just buy 1 or 2 steaks at a time. I buy the whole cow because more is better. But the big question for us today is, what's the goal of life? Is the goal to get more and better stuff? Getting bigger houses and storage units to fit all that stuff? Paying insurance to protect that stuff while we're out getting more stuff? Is the goal in life to gather so much that we can take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry? I want to be clear, though, that stuff, money, wealth, these things, they're not inherently evil. I mean, there's nothing about my Chiefs jerseys, my collection of Chiefs jerseys, that's inherently evil. I mean, sure, I think I have more of them than there are games in a season. Well, however, now that we're up to 17 games in a season, and considering the fact that there are 3 preseason games, and they're making the playoffs every year, and they're making the Super Bowl more often than not, I probably could afford to get another 4 or 5 jerseys. And then, one of my jerseys is a Jamal Charles jersey, which I'm not going to wear that during the season because he's not on the team anymore. So I should probably get an Isaiah Pacheco or some other kind of new player like that. But I can't just get rid of my Jamal Charles jersey because I'm going to want to wear it someday when he's inducted into the Ring of Honor. So I need to get an Isaiah Pacheco jersey, a Creed Humphrey jersey, and probably a couple more just to make sure I have enough for each every week. How easy is it for us to get into this rationalization scheme? How easy is it for us to think that if I just have this one more thing, my life will be better. If I have just this one more thing, my life will be just a little bit easier. If I have just this one more little thing, my life will be a little bit more enjoyable. Maybe this one little thing will help me to be more productive at work. Maybe it'll help me to be more likable. Maybe finally it'll help us to catch up with the Joneses. But it's only ever about right here, right now. And so what does Jesus call this man in the parable and this man before him? He calls him a fool. And the choice of language here is important. Notice that Jesus calls him a fool and not unjust, because we may think we can sneak our way out of this one, but no. This man is rich not because he abused someone else, but because he was blessed with sun, rain, and good fertile land. He's not unjust in acquiring his wealth, but he is a fool in wasting it. The thing is that, we don't have to be intentionally exploitive to be greedy, because greed is inherently exploitive. This man is a fool because he has been blessed by good land, by good sun, and good rain. And he keeps it all for himself, because he is so worried about what he wants, what he needs, the right here and the right now, with immediate gratification, that he has neglected his God and he has neglected his neighbor. He has forgotten that there is so much more to life than stuff. Are we the fools? Have we become overcome? Have we been overcome by greed, creating villains and thieves out of others, especially those whom we love? Do we take our petty disputes to Jesus, expecting him to side with us? Have we amassed far more stuff than we need? Have we all the while ignored the needs of those around us? Again, I ask, are we the fools? Because, my friends, God doesn't care how much wealth and how much stuff that you've collected and amassed in life. It's not about how many barns and how full of grain they are. Time and time again we see that it's about how you have fed the hungry, clothed the naked, visited the imprisoned, and cared for the sick. The question is, how have you used what you have been given? But this isn't just about some far-off consequences. This is also about the here and the now. Because the love of greed and of stuff has temporal consequences as well. Greed destroys relationships. It puts walls between people. It continues to leave out the least, the last, and the lost, if not exploit them outright. But if the sake of others doesn't persuade you, then listen to this. Ultimately, stuff, possessions, wealth, it's going to fail you. What happens when all the stuff you have fades away? What happens when moths come and eat all your jerseys? What happens when fire comes and burns down our homes? What happens when markets crashes and our savings go up in smoke? What happens when material possessions fail to bring us the happiness and the security that we so desire? What are we left with? The fundamental flaw here is that this stuff was never ours to begin with. And it's foolish to think otherwise. We all rely on the contributions of others. Who tended that man's fields? Who harvested the crops? Who built the barns? Who are we to reap from their work? Who stocks the shelves at Walmart? Who delivers the packages from Amazon? I guarantee you it's no Walton or Bezos. Who are we to reap from their work? And who is responsible for the gifts of land, sun, and rain? God. It all comes from God and it all belongs to God. So who are we to stake such a claim anyway? Now, I'm not telling you that you need to go home, sell all your possessions, and live as a hermit deep in the woods and live off the land. However, if that's your thing, by all means, go for it, Godspeed. But what I am saying is that we need to ask ourselves, what's the good in all the stuff that we have amassed? Do we really need it all? Are we using the gifts that we have been given to serve God and neighbor? My friends, our lives are about abundantly far more than the stuff that we amass for ourselves here on earth. Life is about the relationships we build with one another. It's about helping those around us in need. All the junk just gets in the way. And so maybe, just maybe, we need to shove it all to the side so that we can get to what really matters. I invite us today to think about these two things. What is your most prized stuff? And what junk might be in your way today?